Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GLAS Hour. Denis McClean here. Just start off by apologising for last week's cancellation at the last minute, but happily tonight we are joined by Mohamedou Ould Slahi from Nouakchott in Mauritania. Just some housekeeping for those of you who are not familiar with GLAS. The Geneva Literary Aid Society has been going now for 15 years. We usually hold live events, but for the last year we've been running this kind of online lockdown literary festival, and tonight is the 12th interview that we've conducted over that time. We also support the Edith Wilkins Foundation for Street Children, and you can find details of how you can make a small contribution to that worthwhile cause on our website, which is the GLAS, 1S, all one word, 1s.org. So tonight we're in for a very interesting hour with Mohamedou, who's written this amazing book originally called The Guantanamo Diary, and since been reissued as The Mauritanian to coincide with the release of a major film starring Jodie Foster and Benedict Cumberbatch. We also hope that this may be the prelude to a final push to have Guantanamo Bay closed. If it's still open in January, that'll mark 20 years since the first detainees were sent there. And over that 20-year period, over 700 people have been detained without charge in Guantanamo. Just like to read something from President Joe Biden, something that he said about 10 years ago. And of course, since he took office, he has promised to close Guantanamo Bay. He said, America will not torture. We will uphold the rights of those who we bring to justice, and we will close the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay. We say to our friends that the alliances, treaties, and international organizations we build must be credible and they must be effective. That requires a common commitment not only to listen and live by the rules, but to enforce the rules when they are in fact clearly violated. So tonight we're going to talk to somebody who experienced what can happen, how one's life can be turned upside down when those rules are violated and when the Geneva Conventions are not respected. So welcome, Mohamedou. How are you? How are things in Nouakchott?
Thank you, Dennis, for having me, in this GLAS session. And I am so happy, and I feel so honored to be part of this. And again, I apologize for last week because I was taken to the hospital in an emergency in a catatonic state, and I just proved to me that PTSD is for real. It's no joke. And there are triggers. If I see something or if I hear something that reminds me of what happened during those painful years in Guantanamo Bay and other secret prisons, I just I just get cold right away, and I cannot move. I cannot do anything.
That's very
And
understandable, Mohamedou. In fact, that was without knowing what was the cause of your illness last week, I did surmise that given the suffering and the torture that you had undergone in Guantanamo Bay, it was not surprising that you still suffer from bouts of ill health. I thought, Mohamedou, to start, it might be good for our listeners and our viewers to go back to the beginning, to tell your story, where you come from. You come from a very modest background in Mauritania. I believe your father was a nomadic camel trader, and you were born on New Year's Eve in 1970. And you were one of 12 children, very big family, very close, very loving family. And you were seen as something of the savior of the family. You were the bright child who was going to look after everybody else, and you were the first in the family to go to university. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Mauritania?
Thank you, Dennis. That says a lot about the level of my family, level of education, if I'm the brightest. So when we moved, so there were like in the 70s and 80s, there were these successful like droughts that uh, hit the country very hard, and many people lost their livelihood, including my father. We had a great deal of camels. I was too small to remember that, but I was told we had a lot of camels, and all of them died, but very few. And I remember my father taking me and showing me the carcasses of the animals, and he called their names, paying them respect. And my father actually never recovered from the loss of his uh, stocks, his the livelihood of the family. And we had to move to the city for the children to find jobs and to adapt a new lifestyle. And I was too small and too weak to work. And that was a big loss for the family, I guess. And then there was only school, so they sent me to school. I did not have a birth certificate, but the school let me in anyway. And I just fell in love with school. And I remember this very, very hot day, summer day. It was 2:30 p.m. and I had to go to the class of 3 p.m. And the school was about 1.5 kilometers away from home. And I didn't have shoes, but I really wanted to go to my class. I used to dash from one structure to the other to cool down my small feet and go to the next structure or tree, and so on and so forth. And that worked very well if it wasn't for my neighbor who interfered and cut me short and started to scold me. And she asked me why I didn't got my shoes. And I was too ashamed to tell her that I didn't have any shoes because my family was too poor to afford shoes. And and so I just stood there and she was scolding me, and my feet were burning. So I decided to trick her into going back home and collect my non-existent shoes and take another route, so I don't have to deal with the woman again. And that was the kind of circumstances I grew up in. So I went to school, and my family never asked me about school, like, sitting in front of a child, asking him to do no one ever asked me about school or what I did in school. And even my mother didn't understand like number one, number two, because to her mind, at least at my remembrance, uh, number 30 in the class should be better because 30 is bigger than one.
Mm.
And I was always number one, but that didn't mean a lot to my family anyway. So, and I just fell in love with school, with books, and that was like the place I felt safe. I don't know really why, but I think my father always told me that he really wanted me to learn and to read books and so on and so forth.
And how old were you by the time you learned the Quran off by heart?
I actually I was really old. I was like 18 or something, because I was going to two type of school. I was going to the regular French school, and I was going to the like traditional school, like my grandma uh, started started me in the traditional school. And I remember her writing me the alphabet. And I was very sad because she wrote me only like two or three alphabets a day. And the other kids, they have like 1,000 alphabets in their slates. And I was saying, oh, how smart those kids are. They could like remember thousands of alphabet, because I didn't have the notion that there are only so many alphabet and they only repeat them.
Mm.
I think I would have made a very good Chinese person.
How did it come then at the end of secondary school, Mohamedou, that you applied and were accepted for a scholarship to study engineering in Germany?
Yeah, that also was very much by accident because usually the cycle in Mauritania is that if you have a rich family, you go to good schools. They send you to France or to Canada or to the United States of America. And the poor kids, they stay, and then their kids. So they recycle the same thing. But for some reason, Germany, they said they wanted for themselves to go to school and pick up the kids for themselves. And that really saved me. So they came to school and they picked up the best from the classes, and I won a scholarship. And I was really very excited and very happy. This is like something really very alien to a Mauritanian. It was all first. First time I left Mauritania, first time I rode a plane, first time I went to a foreign country. Everything is first time, and I was not yet of age.
And how was your German? One would have thought that given Mauritania's colonial history, you might have chosen France rather than Germany.
Absolutely, absolutely. I dreamed of France. I dreamed of Michel Platini, Alain Giresse, Jean Tigana. Those all players that I have their posters. But I had also like the posters of the German like player, you know,
So
uh, Michael Schumacher.
you were a big soccer fan when you were a kid.
Absolutely, like in my like barak, I had
Mm.
so many posters, of players, and but Germany was really very alien to me. Everything like sounded, the first time, when I arrived to Germany, Frankfurt, it was a cultural shock. It was the first time I sat alone in a room ever.
Mm.
Because in Mauritania, always surrounded by family, by friends, by everybody is looking at everybody. And I felt fear because I was alone. I turned on the TV. It was some like World War II thing. I didn't say anything. When I woke up in the morning, my friend told me, Mohammed, do you know what? They have food for free in the hotel. I was like, really? And then I went downstairs, and there was this room full of all kind of food. It was Sheraton. I don't know whether they have Sheraton still today. And I didn't know what to eat because back home I only know two things. I know bread and butter. Ah, no, we have also confiture. I think that's what they call it in Switzerland.
Jam,
And
yes.
yeah, I didn't know what to eat. And I thought that everybody was looking at me. And I said, okay, I know eggs. And then I took one egg. When I broke it, it was half cooked. And I found myself in a situation where I didn't know how to get rid of it, and it was
Yeah.
really amazing.
So, so you were something of an innocent abroad.
Absolutely, everything was new to me.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'm sure some of your audience speaks German. I remember this combination of consonants in German are very hard for someone who doesn't speak. I remember this wie heißt du, wie heißt du, wie heißt du, and I couldn't really get this do together. And I went to the market one time, and there was this little child, 4 years old. He just walked up to me and looked at me and said, Wie heißt du? And then I said, oh my God, look at this little child who speaks German better than I.
Well, I mean, you were starting on your third language.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So Mohamedou, you started to study engineering in Germany, and if I remember correctly, it coincided with the ongoing struggle in Afghanistan to bring
Yes.
down the communist government there, supported by the CIA. And the
Yes.
Americans and the Mujahideen, Al Qaeda, etc. So, what was it that attracted you to that struggle, and why did you decide to go to Afghanistan and give up your life as a student in Germany, at least temporarily?
I mean, there was a very big, huge momentum to advertise for the jihad in Afghanistan. Like, it's very rare that you turn on the TV on a weekly basis where you don't see like reports about Afghanistan, about the struggle, about the jihad, the mujahideen, the freedom fighters, etc., etc. It was back then the sexy thing to do, to support the mujahideen. And they came to our mosque and they were like gathering money, and they were like supported by the German government officially. And then I said, I want to make a change too. I want to help the Mujahideen. And so uh, not only are they like in cause celebre, but they are also Muslim just like me. And I went to their embassy of the Mujahideen. They call it back then Informations Bureau, the Bureau of Information. And it was the de facto embassy of the Mujahideen. And I was there. They gave me a visa and I went there. I was, I think, in my late teenage. And when I get there, the only game in town was Al Qaeda and the Mujahideen. That's it. And I joined them. But after 2 months, I didn't want to stay there anymore. So I was just, I didn't want to stay there. And then I came back. Then again, I changed my mind after several months and I came back. And then that was 92. And the civil war was full blown after the takeover uh, of Kabul. And then
Hmm.
I left Afghanistan. I never
Did
want
you
to have anything to do with it.
did you take part in any fighting when you were there?
No, I wanted to, but I was never given a chance to take a fight. I know this is like very empowering, growing up in a military dictatorship that you have no say, you cannot say anything. And then in those like, those rebels, they have weapons and they can decide their fate using weapons. That was like very appealing.
So what did you actually do when you were in Afghanistan? How did you
I
spend your
trained,
time?
I trained, and actually, um, Dennis, one of my trainer was an American person.
Hmm.
So, and they also supplied the weapon. And when the first interrogator, the very first interrogator who interrogated me in Guantanamo Bay, he spoke to me. He said, "I was with you in Afghanistan." He told me his name his name was Paul Rust. I hope he watched this program when you have it on YouTube. And
Hmm.
he told me he was there, and he found himself in a very bad situation to explain to the FBI that I wasn't a bad guy really. So
Yeah, well,
uh,
I suppose you did have some cause to regret those excursions to Afghanistan and later on, no?
absolutely,
Yeah.
this was all propaganda. It's all propaganda, and I completely fell for it. And this was a civil war, and Afghanistan, what they needed, not someone who give them weapons, give them bullets, give them training. They need someone to reconcile them and to make peace and to bring all the parties together. But I didn't have that wisdom back then.
Hmm. And of course, by the time you left, the country was descending into a civil war, really, wasn't it? I mean, all the different factions of the Mujahideen started to fight among each other, and then eventually the Taliban emerged as the most powerful group from that struggle.
That's correct. And actually, the Mujahideen were worse than the Russians. At least that is my my own assessment,
Mm.
because I don't know why. I'm not a political analyst, but what the Mujahideen did, the crimes against humanity, and the sheer amount of crimes and death and destruction. But I guess that is what a civil war is. In America, the bloodiest war was the civil war in America. And for some reason, civil war is always a bad news.
Absolutely.
In a second,
So, Mohamedou, you found yourself then back in Germany and you resumed your studies.
yes.
And what happened to you from there on?
So I came back and I forget about Afghanistan. Then I did my study. I studied telecommunication, microelectronics. I graduated. I started working. But one day, a phone call changed my life. It was late 98 or early 99. I received a phone call from my cousin. When we say cousin, that's a tribe, come from the same tribe. It's not like cousin in Western definition. And he called me, and it was a very mundane call, family call. His father was sick in Mauritania, and he needed help. He needed me to help him transfer money to pay the bills. And I did, of course. I said, of course. And I sent the money and I helped him. So that was the call. That's it. Because if the call
And,
was anything
and
other than this, I would be talking to you.
who owned the phone on which that call came to?
Absolutely, that was the problem. So he was a very
Who?
close friend of
Yeah, but
Osama bin Laden. And the phone was owned and registered to Osama bin Laden. It was tapped and listened to fully by the CIA. And that's where I was flagged. So every move I did, every word I said after that was interpreted in a very cynical and evil way.
and at the same time, I think it's worth pointing out that your cousin, for want of a better description, was someone who openly opposed Bin Laden's plan for 9/11 to attack New York and the Pentagon.
That is correct. So uh, he was wanted. This shows you the chaos that reigned after 9/11 and the anger, because I don't know whether you saw the movie, but there is a line that stuck in my head when my former prosecutor, uh, uh, Colonel Couch, when he saw that there was torture, he came to this guy, and then there was a big fight, and he told him, his friend told him, someone need to pay for this, and he told him, someone, not just anyone. So, but after 9/11, the atmosphere was anyone has to pay for this. And that's why my cousin was wanted for $25 million when he was completely innocent. He had nothing to do with 9/11, and he even opposed Osama bin Laden for 9/11. But that, for me, that was too late. That didn't help me in any shape or form,
Mm.
because I was already in prison and I was already being punished.
So the other element of the story that was used against you when you were in Guantanamo under interrogation was your trip to Canada, because you went to Montreal and you took up to look for work there as an engineer, and while you were there, something very significant happened in the lead up
That's
to
correct, Dennis.
nine
So,
11.
so after this very infamous phone call, the German intelligence came to our imam, that is the leader of our mosque in Germany, and they showed him my picture. He told me later on, so he was laughing. He said, "What do you want?" He said, "Someone says that this guy is a bad guy." He laughed. He said, "I know this guy. This guy wouldn't hurt a fly." And then the German guy told him, "We think you're right, but we're telling you that that's not the opinion of the people who are looking for him." And this was almost a tip off for me to sit tight. But I freaked out because I never had any running with the police, and I want to leave Germany. And my friend who was in Canada told me about Canada, and it's easy. People like me are very wanted with my degree and so. And I applied before that, and I had this landed immigrant, and I moved to Canada, thinking that all my problems will disappear and no one will ask any question. I want to start my life.
So you
Yeah.
so you arrived in Canada in November 1999, and you left in January the following year. So you didn't last very long in Canada.
Yes, but it was so significant because I was apparently the mastermind of this uh, infamous Millennium Plot.
That was
Because
a plan to blow up Los Angeles International Airport.
yes, yes, and the Americans said, "We know this guy. He received a phone call from a very close associate of Osama bin Laden. When he came here, this guy went and tried to blow up. The fact of the matter, I don't know this guy. I never met him. I never heard of his name. But go and explain this to the American." So what they did, they said, this guy is too smart to get caught. There is no evidence against him. Canadian couldn't find anything. German couldn't find anything. So let lure him outside of Canada in a place where there is no law, and we kidnap him, we torture him, and he will tell us everything. That's exactly what happened. So Canadians, Americans, and Mauritanian agreed to talk to my mother and ask her to call me back home because they know I would come back if my mother asked me to come. And my mother called me. She said she was sick, and I packed and I went. And I was kidnapped in Dakar and interrogated.
So you arrived in Senegal and you were immediately arrested.
Absolutely. I remember exactly. I was so scared the first time I was arrested in my life.
You have a sentence in the book where you say something to the effect that the Americans have more power over Mauritanians than the Mauritanian government has. This was the beginning of that lesson, was it?
Dennis, I'm afraid to say that unfortunately I thought only Mauritania, but I think that's the case in many countries, including democracies today. I've seen with utter shame with my own eyes United Kingdom citizens being led from the United Kingdom and handed over to the United States of America. And this was like, to me, I mean, this whole terrorism stuff is a sham, is a complete sham. This is a tool in this part of the world to oppress political dissent and to oppress people who don't have the same opinion as you and who oppress like people who are just different than you. And we understand that people suffer from crimes, and we understand that people commit crimes and murder in name of ideologies and so on and so forth. But painting, people with terrorism is so much abused, is so much uh, not agreed upon that it should be done away with. Terrorism must not be a crime. We know if you murder someone, you can be prosecuted. You know if you destroy property. You know if you kidnap someone, you go to prison for that. But why they call me a terrorist? Because there is no other, nothing. I didn't do anything. That one, they put me in prison and deprived me of sleep. They kept telling me, no sleep for terrorists. That's it. No sleep for terrorists. And I was always saying, who is the terrorist?
So just as the prelude to your arrival in Guantanamo Bay, you spent a terrifying few months in custody in Jordan.
Absolutely. Dennis, give me 1 second. This is very important question. I need to answer it, but I need to do something.
Okay. So I'll just read something while we're waiting for Mohamedou to rejoin us. This is something that the US government said in its report to the UN Human Rights Council last August. We are committed to the principle that leadership in the field of human rights is by example. We look forward to engaging constructively with other states and civil society as we seek to improve and strengthen our long-standing commitment to individual and institutional accountability for human rights violations. So one can only hope that lessons will be learned from the film that has been made of Mohamedou's book, that there will be greater public understanding and appreciation of the importance of respect for international human rights and for the Geneva Conventions. I haven't myself seen the film because I didn't want to the interview to be about the film, but to be about this tremendously courageous book, which Mohamedou wrote while he was in detention in Guantanamo Bay. It's a remarkable account, and he demonstrated a remarkable recall of the events which he suffered over a 4-year period.
Dennis, it's Owen here in the control room. Just a reminder to cast an eye on the comments there on the right-hand side of your screen.
Yeah, I have some questions as well that we've received. I think maybe the reason why Mohamedou has disappeared is because we're in the middle of Ramadan, and he's saying a few prayers. I hope you're saying a few prayers for all of us, Mohamedou.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good man. I was trying to fill in the time there. Somebody from your part of the world says it must be about breaking the fast, Ramadan in Mauritania, and summer prayers. So I don't know whether you were praying or eating, Mohamedou, but welcome back.
I'm doing both. So
Good man.
I'm a multitasking.
Good man. Okay, well, moving on then from Jordan, how terrifying was it to realize that you were bound for Guantanamo Bay and would never see your family again, or would not see them for many years?
Dennis, you know, a lot of people ask me, Mohamedou, you went through hell and back, and you coming out and you say, I forgive everyone. I have no rancor toward anyone. We don't believe you. You know, and this is like a lot of people like who are my friends, who are my family, like a lot of people in my family say, we would never forgive them. And I would tell them, you did not go through my experience. This experience is like dying 1,000 times. It started, ironically, in Ramadan, just like this time. When people are spiritual, when people are supposed to be just, to do the right thing. And I was taken to the airport. Around this very time, because I broke fast at the airport. And I was put in this airplane, small airplane, that stopped 3 times. One of the stop was in Cyprus. And I was crying in my inside, hoping that the Cyprus police, you know, control the plane and control our passport. But none of them did that. This was, everybody was on in it. You know, we thought that democracies did not accept this kind of human rights violation, but unfortunately they did. And I spent 8 months. I was not allowed to see anyone. I was not allowed to see the ICRC.
Yeah, I was very shocked to read that when you were in detention in Jordan, that you were hidden from the ICRC, that they used to move the prisoners around. And yes, the irony of that is, of course, that Queen Noor from Jordan is also the chairperson of the International Missing Persons Bureau. I don't know if that irony is lost on the Jordanian authorities.
You know, Dennis, We need to stop all of this by enforcing the rule of law and democracy. It does not help what the country says. And actually, the Jordanian opened the door to the ICRC and tell them, yeah, come, you can go. But they take me to a place where the ICRC has no access. And I did not know most of the time, days from nights, I lost count. So when the CIA took me after 8 months from Jordan, they stripped me naked. They cut my clothes with scissors and they put me in diapers like a child. It dawned on me that my life will change forever. I was thinking I'm gonna die alone, forgotten in a very violent American prison. I am not a good guy because my name is not a good name. My face is not a good face because I look like those on the most wanted FBI list. My religion is not the good religion. I'm a Muslim. I'm an African, a dark skin. And this all was very bad for me. And what I regretted was only bad comment I made about people when I wasn't nice enough to my mother, to my sisters, to my brothers, to my friends, to the people I meet. I never thought about the money I missed, the opportunities in life I missed, or that I'm not professor, doctor, whatever, that I'm not a president. I never regret that I didn't marry this very hot girl I met. The only thing I regretted, I wasn't nice enough. And I took it upon myself, if Allah, if God gives me my life back, to be nice. That's it, being nice. Because that's what mattered to me.
Okay, Mohamedou, but you arrive in Guantanamo Bay and the people who met you on arrival, they were not very nice. Can you try and convey to our viewers and listeners, the horror of that experience over the period of time covered by your amazing book, Guantanamo Diary, now known as the Mauritanian?
So, because of the time, because I want to hear from your audience, I have to be very brief. But in the beginning, they start to interrogate me just like FBI technique and approach, what they call rapport. Later on, I learned this jargon from books. And I was very consistent. I told them, I don't owe you any answers. You kidnapped me. You need to tell me why I'm here, and I cooperate with you. If you don't tell me, I'm done with you. You can burn me in this island. You can do whatever you want. I'm not answering any of your questions. They kept trying, and then they decide I'm hopeless because I was just making fun of the question. For instance, sometimes they tell me, they ask me same question. I said, but you already asked me this question, and I told you. Very mundane question. They said, but we want to know whether you lie or not. I said, I remember every lie I said, and I will repeat it. And then they would tell me, why did you study so-and-so? I said, of course. I didn't know I have to ask Americans about what I should study. Next time, I will ask you, and I will take your advice. So they knew that I just was a bad mouth and what they call smart tail. And they said no. And they gave me to this torture team. And they start technique. So 70 days, the first 70 days, no sleep, 24 hours interrogation, sexual assault, beating until they broke my ribs, and my gallbladder was damaged, and they had to remove it years later on. And they took me on this boat, and they start to pour water on my face and give me the feeling I was drowning. And they give me to Egyptian and Syrian team who apply other techniques. And this went on for about a year. But when they came to me after those 70 days, and told me that my mother would be arrested and put in a prison where only men are. I knew I had nothing to lose. The last time I saw my mother was in my rearview mirror when she was praying, holding her prayer beads. And when I turned right, she disappeared forever. I never saw my mother again. And I just was ready to confess to everything. And I told them to write any confession and I would sign it.
They were basically threatening your mother with sexual assault.
Correct.
I mean, one of the most touching scenes in the book, Mohamedou, is when eventually you did get access to a delegate from the International Committee of the Red Cross, and they asked you, the delegate asked you if you would like to send a message to your family. You wrote a message to your mother. Was that the last message you were able to get to your mother before she died?
I think this is the during my this was in India Block, and
India Block in Guantanamo Bay.
Yes, and I think
was that the worst location in the Guantanamo Bay?
Not worse. I was taken to worse,
even worse
location, so even worse. So, but I was alone. It was cold. The cold room I described in my book. That's where Mohamedou Ould died. You know, similar condition. He died of hypothermia, and so I remember this young woman, young blonde, Melissa. I don't know whether Melissa or Melanie. She came to me and she said hi. And I wrote a letter. I think it was brief. I just told my mother that I love her and things like that. And I just went back and I started crying. You know, I'm a Bedouin. I'm a very hardened and so. And you cannot make me cry easily, but the conditions that was so bad, and I couldn't tell the Red Cross everything. I was so scared and so afraid, and I even the delegate Beatrice came to me. She was the head of, I think, North America, and she wanted me to share with her what happened to me, and I said I can't. And she was very frustrated with me. I remember that. But I was so scared, so afraid, because I know that Americans showed me that the Red Cross had no value to them, because they can show me to the Red Cross when they wanted to, when it serves their agenda, and they can take me away from the Red Cross. That's exactly what they did.
Well, actually, we have a question, Mohamedou, from one of our viewers. Someone who doesn't wish to give their name, let's call him Joe. He says, during all your years at Guantanamo, apart from lawyers, did you have any visits from anyone else, such as doctors, NGOs? Well, you've mentioned the Red Cross. And if so, how often? And what was the effect for you and for other detainees of such visits? Was there any benefit from them? Was there any benefit from them? No.
Zero. No family, no family, no journalists, no NGOs. The only people who could visit us outside Americans or our lawyers, when they were allowed after 3.5 years, were the Red Cross. When the Red Cross was allowed, and the Red Cross did not have access to all detainees all the time.
We have a question also from Mary Pacau. She asks, my question for Mohamedou is, to what do you attribute your extraordinary resilience to repeated trauma over such an extended period of time?
Could you please, I didn't answer the question.
Yeah, what do you think helped you to survive such trauma and exposure to ill treatment and torture? How do you think, what did you have that helped you to survive all that and to come out still relatively sane and healthy?
Every torture survivor is strong and resilient, And the reason is very simple, because you didn't get to talk to Ahmed Gul because he didn't survive. You didn't get to talk to Dali War, who died in Bagram, the prison I was in. Who was beaten to death. A taxi driver, mistaken identity, you know. You will only talk to survivor who survived. And I really don't know why I survived. I know that my faith played a very big role, and I know that my forgiveness and not bearing any grudge for anyone helped me, because it made me happy and it made me live with peace. You know, we talk to people here who may have read Crime and Punishment. My biggest lesson from Crime and Punishment is the punishment is in the crime itself. If you didn't do anything, you don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah. Well, we have a message here from Christina, or a question saying, you say that you have forgiven your captors. How on earth can you do this? She finds it very difficult to understand or believe. Can you say something more about that?
Christina,
Yeah.
Thank you for this question. When I'm going to be on my deathbed, hopefully after many happy years, the only thing I will regret is not being nice. I will not regret that I missed this big deal, or I don't have money in the bank, or I don't have so many houses. The only thing I will regret is not being nice. So this is my contribution, being nice and help, reconciliation between people of different backgrounds and religion. That's why I invite all Americans who were guarding me, who were interrogating me, to come to me, and I want to show them that people in Mauritania are just like Americans. They want freedom, they want dignity, they want job, they want opportunity. I would be very hypocritical if I don't forgive and I preach freedom and liberty and democracy.
Great answer. We have another question here from, we're getting quite a few questions from Ireland, Mohamedou, believe it or not. This one is, what message do you have for your former co-detainees who are still there in Guantanamo Bay? I doubt if they're listening to us tonight, but what would you say to them if they were?
I'm very humbled, and I can only learn from them, and I'm not in a place to give them any advice or anything. But if they were hearing me, I'm telling them that I'm working day and night with so many good people from all walk of life, from all backgrounds, from all religions, to free them. We wrote letters, plural, to Joe Biden. And I believe that Joe Biden is a good guy. And I believe that he will shatter the prison forever, because the prison is a complete disrespect to the human values, to democracy, to the values upon which the United States of America was built.
How much faith do you think, do you have that Guantanamo will be closed before the 20th anniversary in January next year?
It will be shut down. I live on hope, and this depends on they have this Asian maxim. I think it's Japanese. You correct me, but this guru told his disciple that he has two animals in him, the good animal and the bad animal, and he said, so who is stronger? And he told him, the one you feed the most. So, and my answer also, how much are we ready in this? We are today. How much are we ready to make pressure on our governments and to write letters and to help organizations to encourage our American brothers and sisters to close this prison that is illegal and that is a shame?
We've another question here, Mohamedou, from John Dalton, who lives in West Cork in Ireland. He says, John asks, how were you informed of your release, and what were your emotions when you were told of your release?
So, Jean, first, I think you and I are related because my family is from the same county. So, my American family. And I'm telling you, I'm planning to visit you in August if Ireland allows me to do that. And I remember that vividly. I was in Camp 6, and I think it was a hotel block. And I was alone in my cell. I was in lockdown. Lockdown, for those who don't know prison jargon, when they put you in your cell and you don't go out for many days. Then I think it was like at least 2 weeks. I never seen the outside in my cell. And I remember what I had in my cell. I had a couple DVDs of 2.5 Men. I urge all the guys to watch it. It's a very funny show. And I had some very bad written books, Shakespeare plays. And don't get me wrong, I love Shakespeare. I love his, the stories, but the plays, I don't understand the plays because they go back and forth, and it's very hard for me to read. And I just, that's what I had. And this captain came to me, the very pretty face. She looked from the bean hole. The bean hole is the small hole in the cell where they give you food. And then she stick part of her head inside, said, hey, 760, that's my name, 760. I don't have any name. Do you know that you're going home? I said, no. She said, you're going home. And then she left. And then I didn't know the feeling. I cannot describe it. I went frantically to the photos of my family and started to read their names because I forget the faces. And I used to have the photo and then on the back the name. So I look at the photo and the name. And I go like all the time. That's how I know I was going to be released.
Very nice story. So we have a message here from Gezgian Marti, who's asking, how many books did you read in Guantanamo, and which ones were your favorites?
So, so not all books were allowed. So I could only read what I'm given. Every book I laid my hands on, I read, because I had no life. They have a saying in America, okay? Beautiful people go on TV. Ugly people go on radio. So, and this is this is the wisdom of Joey Tribbiani from Friends. And yes,
you were watching Friends in Guantanamo Bay.
Absolutely, every single episode. And I say people who are beyond ugly and beyond that, they read books. So, and one of the biggest books I read is Britannica. One of the guard.
The encyclopedia.
Yes. So the one of the guard, he actually this was smuggled. One of the guard, they want to throw away the old volumes, and then he brought them to me, and I hid them, and I kept going back, and read. Of course, I didn't read everything, but I kept reading, and I urge everyone to read Britannica. It's really a lot of knowledge, a lot.
Mohamedou, you've skipped a little bit over those years you cover in the Guantanamo Diary, which are, pretty brutal to read about. And I think we've learned a little bit there from you about how you picked up English, because your mastery of English and the voice you you develop in writing the book is quite remarkable. But I'm wondering, after that period, what was life like in Guantanamo Bay? Was it more light? Was it easier for you in terms of less exposure to torture and to ill treatment? Did you have an easier time? I'm sure it's never easy to be deprived of your freedom, but were you subject to less abuse and maltreatment?
Dennis, actually, I just published a short story called Guard Duty, and it's published by Evergreen, and I could send you the link, and it's for free. It's accessible. It's for free. The audience can read it, and I covered some of that time. After the torture, it was much better. So I was allowed, to talk to the guards, and they were allowed to remove their masks, because before I couldn't see their faces, and it was very underwhelming, by the way. So people, if they cover their faces, is okay too. So I don't know all this debate in your country, I think Switzerland, about the burqa, and so it's very underwhelming if they take them off, I'm telling you. So and I remember this day, Sergeant Steve Wood, I was very reclusive. I was in my cell. I was very scared. This is the end of the torture. It's not the end, but I was still under the threat, but they didn't torture me anymore. And he came to me, and he with his heavy accent, drink coffee. Then I was like, yes, I want a friend. And then he told me, get up. And then I came out, and then he gave me some coffee, and then he had some movies, and he was not supposed to tell me his name, but one of the CD says Wood, WOOD. So I know that was his name. And but I didn't tell him, because when you see someone's name in Guantanamo Bay, it's like you see them opening their flies. You cannot make any comment about it.
Yeah.
And so he asked me whether I could play rummy. And I said, I don't know, but if you teach me, I can learn. He taught me rummy, and then we start playing cards with the other guards too, and then we introduced risk and so on and so forth, and start gossiping about people. And that when I knew he was a good friend, because all we do in Mauritania is gossip about people who are not around.
Like we do in Ireland as well. Well, you'd be happy to hear that you've had an invitation to visit the lovely town of Tramore in County Waterford, which is next to Cork. I think you'll have to explain to people why it is you would like to live in Ireland.
So
and also, Mohamedou, what are the ongoing restrictions on your travel, your ability to travel? I know that you managed to go to South Africa to visit the film set for the Mauritanian, but I believe you still have you would have great difficulty traveling to Europe or to America, despite the fact that your wife is American, I believe.
Absolutely, my wife is Irish American, and she's from the county of Cork, and so the problem is this. So this is I am like the shame that should be held in the house, and my voice should be stifled, but I don't accept this, because of the I truly believe that democracy dies in darkness, and I do believe that we cannot be free in this part of the world if we don't speak up and say what we want. And what we want is freedom, plain and simple. And we can always speak about violent extremism, terrorism, whatever you call it, but this will not stop. Violence will not stop until there is freedom and democracy in this part of the world. And this is me. I'm going to talk about this. And it's so shameful that the war criminals who designed torture in the United States of America and killed people under torture can go freely in Europe, advertise their books, and make talks and get paid money. And the victims of torture are not allowed into Europe. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable, and it's not conducive to freedom and to democracy and to human rights. And of course, I want to go to Ireland because my family is vacationing in Ireland in August, and I want to be with my family. I want to be with my son.
But what is the difficulty in getting a visa?
The difficulty so far, as the Der Spiegel published an article, and they found out that an operative of the embassy in Mauritania, who worked under the cover of a diplomat, asked expressly all Western embassies in Nouakchott not to allow me to seek medical treatment, because first and foremost, my family want to get me the right medical treatment, that I cannot get in Mauritania. And they actually published this leaked email. And so far, the European countries are cooperating with this request.
Well, that is shocking, because of course, Mohamedou, we would love to have you as a guest before one of our audiences whenever it is we get back to having live events. I have another question for you from somebody using the name Snow White Al, I think. My question to Mohamedou is, how do you suppress the awful memories, flashbacks from Guantanamo Bay?
Oh,
or do you suppress them? Can you suppress them?
It's the other day, what happened to me, why I didn't come to you, answers your question. I tried to put a brave face, and they say, you know what, it's over. I'm not anymore in Guantanamo Bay. But there is an incident I cannot explain now that happened to me.
Why not?
That threw me in a catatonic state, and I almost died. I almost bled to death. And actually the hospital said that I need to go to the abroad, to another country to seek medical treatment. And I have actually the report, everything, because they say, Mohammed, you have serious traumas and you need to talk about them. You need to take medication and so on and so forth. So the brain is very tricky. I'm very positive, and I know I believe in medical treatment, everything, but there are triggers that made me like a child, complete child.
I just want to give people the name of your new publication. It's called Guard Duty, and it's available on Evergreen. I've just lost it. Yeah, it's there. Thanks to Owen O'Sullivan, our producer. He's tracked down the link. It's evergreenreview.com. And you will find Mohamedou's latest writing there. Mohamedou, that's one thing I wanted to ask you myself, was you had a lot of your personal possessions confiscated from you in Guantanamo Bay, including a number of writings. Do you have any hope of getting those back?
I never seen a pig fly, but I think that the right thing for American government to do is to give my property, my intellectual property, because this is protected by international laws. And I wrote some manuscript, and this was a punishment for me, because they told me if I go to court and challenge them in court, I will lose a lot, because they will not release me and I will lose. But I said I'm going to court anyway. So I wrote a self-help book. I called it Portable Happiness, written by me. No one is going to buy this book. And the other thing is The Awful English Language, Countering Mark Twain's The Awful German Language. And
well, that sounds like it would be a fun read.
Yes, absolutely. It's really very fun read, because for research of this book, I asked to read all of Shakespeare. I read all of his, what I could have, you know. And but I cheated. I read Mary Lamb, version,
I know.
because
The
Shakespeare was
Tales of
very
Shakespeare.
hard.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the other one is Ahmed in Deutschland. Deutschland is the word, Germany. It's a fiction about the conflict of identity that Muslim youth have in Western Europe. And because I live with so many youth, because I was an imam, drug problem, extremism, and so on and so forth. And the other book that they took away from me is Ahmed and Zarga, is about Bedouin life. That's the only book I reconstructed and I wrote. And I promise you, I will write all of those books again.
Mohamedou, we've made great use of the film to promote this talk this evening, so I can't let you go without asking your opinion of the film. As I said earlier, I haven't seen it myself, but I know a lot of people watching us tonight will have seen it. What was your opinion of
it? The film is good and it's very accurate. And I always, when people ask me, what do you think about the movie? I say, Guantanamo Bay is the dramatization of the movie The Mauritanian, because you cannot put in a movie 70 days of sleeplessness unless you put an actor and you make him sleepless for 70 days consecutive. And the message that I want, is a message that this exception for Africa and for the Middle East from human rights and from democracy must stop. We need freedom, we need democracy, we need human rights, exactly as you, Dennis, enjoy them in Ireland, as American people enjoy them, and as the rest of the world, free world, enjoy them. As simple as this.
There's a question here from Yara Dababna. I'm not sure where she's writing from. She's asking, was the Mauritanian government involved in securing your eventual release? Did they say? I mean, I know they facilitated in many ways your capture and your imprisonment in a terrible betrayal of one of their citizens. But did they do anything to try and make up for that?
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late. Okay. You actually did visit the film location, no?
Yes, I did.
What kind of an experience was that? Was it traumatic or was it uplifting? Did you feel great that your words were finding expression in a new medium?
Dennis, my mother always told me, Mohamedou, you have wishes, but you don't know what Allah will give you. What Allah will give you is always better than your wish. And I was wishing, after I got my passport, after 3 years of fight to get my passport, that is my right to have my passport, I want to join my family in Germany. Germany denies me visa, but South Africa bravely gave me the visa. And as luck had it, the first place I visited was Robben Island.
Wow.
And I was watching those tourists laughing, taking pictures, and I was in utter solemnness, because I felt the ghost of those people who were tortured, who lost their youth, who died in that prison. And when I left the prison, I looked, and I speak German, and I read on the gate, it says, "Ons dienen met Trost." This is not German. This is
Afrikaans. Yeah.
It means in English, we serve with pride. What came to my mind is what is written on the gate of Guantanamo Bay camp: honor bound to defend freedom. I always say, why do you need to say that?
Yeah. It reminds me of the words over Auschwitz, Arbeit macht frei.
Yes. Yeah. That always gives me the chill. You know, when the interrogators in Bagram told me, die Wahrheit macht frei, the truth sets you free. I just, the sign of about macht frei came to my mind, and I lost it. I lost it.
Mohamedou, before we finish up, I can't let you go without asking you about some of the people who are still in Guantanamo Bay, and I'm thinking in particular of Ahmed Rabbani. I wonder, did you know him? He was a taxi driver in Karachi who was arrested in a case of mistaken identity. They thought he was a 9/11 conspirator named Hassan Gul, a Pakistani member of Al-Qaeda, who actually was killed in a drone strike, I believe, several years ago. But Ahmed Rabbani is, as far as I know, he's still on hunger strike. So that would be about 7 years, I think he's been on hunger strike and force-fed every day. I read an account of his relationship with his son, who he has never seen. He was taken prisoner when while his wife was pregnant, and he now has this teenager who suffers greatly from the absence of his father, but also from the fear of his own mother and grandmother that someday the boy himself will be taken off the street in the same way his father was. And it was very moving to read Ahmed Rabbani's account of his last conversation with his son as he told it to his own lawyer. So I wonder, you know, I guess there were a lot of people like Ahmed Rabbani in Guantanamo. Do you know many of the people who are still there, 40 or so people who are still detained without charge?
The first year I was allowed to be with the population, but after that I was completely put in isolation, and I didn't get to meet people after that. So I know people who were supposed to be released with me. Of course, I heard the story of Rabbani. It's like the story of so many people, so many, you know, injustice. And one of the people who were released, cleared with me, a Moroccan, you know, by the name of Latif, and another Algerian by the name of Sufyan. They both were cleared, but they never made it to the plane. One of them, because the guy who was supposed to send the paperwork slept in, and the Algerian guy, the Secretary of Defense, refused to sign his paper, and they're still almost 4 years on, they're still in prison. This is not justice. Those people were clear. That means the US government said we don't want them here, but they are still in prison. And I just feel so much guilt that I can enjoy freedom, I can talk to you, but they cannot talk to you.
Mohamedou, I think we're going to leave it there. You know, it's been fascinating to listen to you for the last hour and 15 minutes, and we really do appreciate you making an exception of your normal regime during Ramadan to talk to us. And we have a lovely message here from Edith Wilkins, who is responsible for the Street Children charity that we support through GLAS. She actually lives in Cork, so I'm sure she'd be delighted to welcome you if you make it to Cork with your family in August, Mohamedou. And she says, Edith, who's a wonderful humanitarian herself, she's done wonderful work for many, many years with street children in India and other places. And she says, Mohamedou is the nearest thing to a living saint I have ever seen. Gandhi springs to mind in his amazing forgiveness. I think we should move mountains for him and his wife to live together in Ireland with their little boy. So there you are. I don't think we could come up with a more heartfelt wish for your future happiness, Mohamedou, and of course your future well-being, and hope that you get the medical treatment that you have every right to. And we thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you have any final message for us, Mohamedou.
I only want to tell you that I love you guys so much, and I don't know what to say. This is the first time I feel speechless. I only can send you guys, love and peace. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Mohamedou, and thank you to our friends in the studio there in Nouakchott in Mauritania. It looks like a very busy city behind you there, Mohamedou.
Ramadan, it's Ramadan.
It's Ramadan. It looks very busy. And thanks, Joan O'Sullivan, our producer here in Switzerland, in Geneva. And we wish you all a very good night and hope to see you again soon at the next GLAS event. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohamedou. Good night.
Good night.